You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com at Braves Country.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Hey, folks, this is Mark White with The Mark White Show, and you can tune into The Mark White Show every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on Rock 99, WQEE The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk.
Are you looking for a reliable dental practice that not only cares about your teeth, but is friendly to work with? How about one that offers great deals and new patient promotions? Well, your search is over. Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton, Georgia is committed to giving you the biggest and brightest smile. Right now, get a $99 new patient special, including x-rays and exam. Maybe you're looking for veneers. Most Valuable Smiles veneer special includes one free veneer with every 5 purchased. Or get that bright white smile you've always wanted by taking advantage of an exclusive $100 off Zoom whitening treatment when you book today. And don't forget that 2022 is almost over. That means most insurance policies will reset by the new year, and to avoid losing that extra money, you need to use it or lose it. Book an appointment today with Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton to lock in these exclusive deals. Call 706-623-0318 or visit mostvaluablesmiles.com.
Enjoy sun-drenched days, epic stays, and plenty of room to roam in Greater Fort Lauderdale. Our hotels, attractions, and restaurants have taken the Visit Lauderdale's Safe and Clean pledge so you can relax and explore with confidence. When you're ready for that well-deserved staycation, our 23 miles of golden beaches await. Find wide-open spaces to hike, bike, kayak, and paddleboard. Visit your favorite attractions, then dine out in style in dining rooms or al fresco on waterfront patios. Learn more at sunny.org.
It all starts with just one thing. When recycling, rinse out jars and cans, and avoid recycling wax paper or paper soiled with food. This will reduce recycling contamination. Find tips and more at onethingus.com. What's your one thing?
Hey, sports fans, The Key has a brand new show. Braves Country is coming your way weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Drive time on WQEE. Braves Country is a Southern sports talk show with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We'll be talking the Atlanta Braves and Major League Baseball, along with everything important to sports fans in Braves Country. The SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and the National Football League, and the big sports news of the day. That's Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. Weekdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. right here on WQEE The Key, 99.1 FM, and simulcasting on youtube.com/@Braves Country.
At Shell, we know from the time you get up to the time you wrap up,
good night,
there's a lot of meetups, eat-ups, and hurry-ups. So come to Shell and get 3 things done at once. Fill up with Shell V-Power Nitro Plus to help keep your engine running like new. Save up with the Fuel Rewards program and never pay full price for gas again. And snack up with in-store rewards to save even more at the pump. Make the most of the stop you need to make with Shell and engines that continuously use Shell V-Power Nitro Plus premium gasoline. See full terms and conditions at fuelrewards.com.
That's the sound of NyQuil Severe hard at work. NyQuil Severe is the best sleep with a cold medicine. No tossing and turning, just rest and recovery. So you're ready to take on tomorrow. For powerful relief of your worst cold and flu symptoms, try NyQuil Severe. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, best sleep with a cold medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey, Braves fans, thank you for listening to Braves Country Baseball. Hi, I'm Mac McGee, and we are here to bring you play-by-play pitch by pitch of your Atlanta Braves, bringing you spring training and 2 to 3 games a week all season long. Please like and subscribe today. Braves Country Baseball.
Winter is the perfect time to start planning for your healthy, pest-free spring lawn with True Green, America's #1 lawn care company. True Green's science-based approach and local expertise will help give your lawn the year-round care it needs to be thick and weed-free. Go to TrueGreen.com. Just call 866-946-5956 or go to TrueGreen.com today and get a lawn to be proud of.
Hey, sports fans, it's Rod Peterson here, host of The Rod Peterson Show, inviting you to join us daily for 2 hours of Atlanta's funnest sports talk right here on WQEE. I say fun because it is. You've never heard a show like it because we make the listeners a part of the show every day between noon and 2 p.m. Eastern. You'll hear plenty of the best sports talk, including the latest on the Falcons, the Braves, and more. And who knows, you might even hear you. That's the Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon, right here on WQEE 99.1 FM.
We live in a world now that welcomes and nurtures the screwball in all of us. Hey, it's a new decade, people. Time to get a little nutty. Treat yourself to Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey, a smooth flavor that combines 2 of America's favorites, peanut butter and American whiskey. So no more social awkwardness. Time to embrace who you truly are. Get out there and make friends. And be sure it starts with Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. It's available nearly everywhere. Learn more at screwballwhiskey.com. Infinium Spirits. Please enjoy responsibly.
Hey, sports fans. The Key has a brand new show. Braves Country is coming your way weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Drive Time on WQEE. Braves Country is a Southern sports talk show with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We'll be talking the Atlanta Braves and Major League Baseball, along with everything important to sports fans in Braves Country. The SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and the National Football League. And the big sports news of the day. That's Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. Weekdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. right here on WQEE, The Key, 99.1 FM. And simulcasting on youtube.com/@Braves Country.
It's the best in sports and entertainment, and get locked in and locked down with Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. with your host, me, Ryan O'Neal, each and every morning, right here with the best in sports and entertainment, all the way from professional sports to college sports to River Dragons hockey and everything in between, including some of the very best local and national guests. It's the Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Fridays, right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia.
Armchair. You're listening to the Armchair Quarterback Sports Radio, #1 sports station.
Good afternoon, and this is your Armchair Quarterbacks Sports Flash. College football action on Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern, Louisiana and Houston in the Independence Bowl. The Cougars, a 7-point favorite. 57 is the over-under. And at 6:30 Eastern, Wake Forest, Missouri, a battle of ACC versus SEC. The Demon Deacons, 1-point favorite. Over-under sits at 58.5. That game is in Tampa, Florida. On Christmas Eve, it's the Hawaii Bowl. Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders versus the San Diego State Aztecs. MTSU is a 7-point underdog. Over-under is 49. The National Football League this weekend has a full slate on Christmas Eve. Saturday's action begins at 1 o'clock Eastern. Titans host the Texans. Tennessee is a 4-point favorite. Over-under is 36. Bills and Bears. Buffalo, 9-point favorite. 40.5 is the over. Saints and Browns, Cleveland a 2.5-point favorite, 32 is the under. Seahawks and Chiefs, Kansas City, 10-point favorite, over under 49.5. A big one in the NFC, Giants and Vikings in Minnesota, under the dome. Vikings -4, over under 48. Bengals and Patriots, Lockhorns, Joe Burrow and company, 3-point favorite, the line is 41.5. Your Atlanta Falcons, a 7.5-point underdog in Baltimore. the over-under 37.5. Lions and Panthers, Detroit -2.5, over-under 44. In the late games on Christmas Eve, 4:05 Eastern, Commanders, 7-point dogs to the Niners out in San Fran, over-under 38. The Eagles and Cowboys, Eagles are getting 4.5, over-under is 47. Christmas Eve night, an old rivalry renewed. Feels like the 70s when the Pittsburgh Steelers host the Raiders. Steelers -2.5, over under 39. In your Christmas Day slate, Packers and Dolphins at 1, Miami giving up 4. Broncos and Rams, that over under is 36.5, kicking off at 4:30. And the nightcap, Bucks needing a win, giving up 6.5 at Arizona, over under is 41. And that's your Armchair Quarterback Sports Flash. Stay tuned for Braves Country right here on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, simulcasting on YouTube.com at Braves Country.
Armchair.
There's something kind of about a kid that's never played baseball.
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, and flat out deceived.
Why did you get so drunk?
You got drunk. I'm just really exhausted.
What's in that cup?
Rum and Cokes.
Do you have any idea how important this is? We're trying to save the pub. Really? This is what you're doing? This is what you're doing?
Chief, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night. Try to take over the world.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Armchair.
YouTube Live.
Radio station.
The radio station you can call your own. Do you know what listeners like about our station?
I like everything. It's always on my radio.
We never stop the music, except for now, when I talk.
You're listening to Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We're here live weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key. And simulcasting on YouTube.com/at Braves Country. Your first choice for Southern sports. Good afternoon. I'm Mac McGee, and I don't know much, but I know one thing. Christmas is finally here, and it is going to be the longest weekend with all we've got in store.
Armchair.
Community Access Channel.
He's the armchair quarterback. He's full of beer and he's full of snacks. The all-American man with a cool one in his head. Yeah, the armchair.
Hey, howdy, hi, and how the hell are you? Welcome to Braves Country here on WQEE The Key and Armchair Quarterback Radio. We are getting set for Christmas Eve tomorrow. We've got Christmas the following day. It falls on a weekend, so you don't realistically get that extra day. Now, some folks will have Monday off. Some folks have today off. But there are a lot of folks that only get the 2 days off, and it is an exhausting 2 days for a lot of folks for a lot of reasons. You usually have a lot of Christmas shopping that you've been doing. You're usually doing a lot of wrapping of gifts. And then, of course, anything that you may have planned for the actual weekend itself. The preparation is one thing. Going forward is another. We've got a bunch of friends coming over tomorrow, so we're going to get the house ready for that. So that'll take up tonight. And then we will have the friends over and the drinks and the food and all the good times. And then the next day, we have to travel down to my in-laws and basically do it all over again. And by the time we normally get home on Christmas night, we're usually just wiped. And we are looking forward to seeing everybody. That's the fun of it. The non-fun part of it is getting ready for it, right? So thankfully, we're going to have a whole lot of football this weekend wrapped around it, right? We're going to have a lot of ball games and a lot of things that we are going to cover over the next couple hours here on Braves Country. As okay, first and foremost, I think the thing that we have to set up first, in case you missed it, very early this morning, the news broke that the Braves made a trade. It's a minor trade. It's a trade with the Orioles to get infielder Luis Diaz. Now, he typically plays first base. I think there's thought that he could possibly DH some, etc. And what this means, now they didn't give much up. It was for cash considerations, the old famous cash considerations. And if you remember, so if the name sounds familiar, Diaz was actually with the Marlins last year. He was the first baseman with the Marlins. And he's had a lot of promise, but all in all has never really lived up to the promise. And so basically they're bringing him in to see what he can do in the spring, and he may or may not make the team. They're throwing some darts at the wall, some rather cheap darts at the wall for depth on the Braves. Look, this is not a guy that they're expecting to carry the freight for 162 games. But if he's a guy that can give Matt Olson a day off from every once in a while, then so be it. And you're still going to have your main core with Atlanta this year. You know the usual suspects around the infield. It'll be Olson. Ozzie Albies should be ready to roll. It looks like it's going to be a Grissom Arcia platoon at short. Third base, obviously, is Riley. He's locked up long term. And then behind the plate, they've improved defensively with Sean Murphy. Of course, Travis d'Arnaud will get starts back there. And Travis d'Arnaud, when he's not starting back there, he'll probably DH quite a bit. Out in the outfield, look, you're looking at what we hope is Ronald Acuna Jr. has a much better year than he did last year coming off that injury, and he should be much better this year. And the injury, because it always felt like, didn't it, that about the time that Acuna started to heat up and started to play really well, he'd have to take 4 or 5 days off because of his knee. So hopefully all that is in the rear view mirror now, and he'll be cemented into right field. Money Mike will be cemented into center field. And then left field right now looks like it's going to be a platoon. It also looks like it's going to be an open competition. You may have Ozuna on the roster. If you do, I figure he's going to face lefties. And you would have Rosario facing righties. But there's other guys that will give them competition, some guys that they've brought over in the trade and the minor free agent market. But essentially, I think you're looking at what the Braves are going to look like starting opening day. And I saw an article that someone shared with me that was talking about how little the Braves have spent in the offseason because they're subtracting what they got rid of and what they brought in, and it's just under $1 million. This was right before this move here with Diaz. And you can look at it that way if you want to be the pessimist, but if you want to be a realist, the Braves spent quite a bit of money because they went out and they locked up a lot of guys long-term, and guys that would have been making considerably less this coming year have now been locked up long-term, and they're making a lot more. Right? Guys like Michael Harris. Michael Harris took a huge pay bump this year that he would not have had if it had not been for the extension. Spencer Strider. Austin Riley would not be making as much this year. Not nearly as much. So all of these things do come into play, and you have to look at it realistically. They're still going to be right there, top 5 as far as salaries. What's dwarfing it is the obvious, and that is people are fixated on how much money the Mets are spending. And then, of course, the Yankees went out and got a couple of big fish. And the Phillies went out and did some things. And they're getting expensive veterans where the Braves are building within and trying to keep guys locked up long term, trying to get it to where we don't have another situation where the Freddie Freemans, the Dansby Swansons walk again, because once they get within a year or two of free agency, it's really hard to get them to sign a club friendly deal. But that is the big news of the day for the Atlanta Braves. If you watched that game last night, and we did the game play-by-play. As we're switching over back to the NFL now. Jets, Jaguars. It's hard to believe that those two quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, were drafted back-to-back 1 and 2. Because Lawrence is now looking like a quarterback that was deserving of the number 1 pick overall. And Zach Wilson looks like a guy that, quite frankly, I don't know if he's going to be on an NFL roster next year. I don't know if he should be on an NFL roster next year. He looks lost. He looks like a guy that probably needs to go sit on a practice squad. He looks like a guy that needs to basically look himself in the mirror and figure out if this is what he wants to do. But right now, he is not doing the things that you would want him to do for a guy who's drafted number 2 overall. And maybe it was a big stretch, a big reach. Remember something. BYU played a pretty cake schedule his final year, and it was because of the pandemic. So all of the out-of-conference games were canceled, remember? And BYU at the time was an independent. And so BYU was scraping and scrounging, trying to find a way to put together a workable schedule. And they played everybody and anybody that they could play, but there weren't a lot of teams out there that were playing out-of-conference games. And the big game that everyone thinks about when they think of Zach Wilson in his final year at BYU was the game against Coastal Carolina, which he really didn't look that great. He looked good, but what is Coastal Carolina compared to a Power 5? And you get a guy who's been in Utah. You get a guy who what he looks like to me when he's running around there on the NFL field, lost, scared, chucking the ball up in the air. He looks like a guy that honestly should probably be a sophomore at a Power 5 school and not a second-year man in the NFL. He looks like a guy that still needs another year of college under his belt before he hits the draft. And maybe it's got something to do with the way the pandemic shut everything down. Because when you hear him interviewed, he doesn't seem like he's a real dumb kid or anything like that. But something's not clicking where he does not appear to be reading defenses. There were a couple of basic blitzes last night that he should have been able to pick up instantly. And they caught him by surprise. I mean, I'm talking about basic blitz packages that you would see in the high school and college level. And then there were a few plays where he had the guy open and he's missing. And look, I get that there was weather conditions last night, but Trevor Lawrence wasn't missing guys by 10 yards. When they finally put Streveler in, the third, but really the fourth quarterback on the roster, because Joe Flacco, they've just given up. Joe Flacco has no sense of awareness when he's on that sideline. His dauber's in the dirt. He's looking down. He almost looks like he's not even paying attention to the game. So you can't put him in there. And the few times they've put him in here recently, he's looked terrible. I really don't know why they haven't go ahead and DFA'd him or released him, as they call it in the NFL. But they obviously have no desire to put him back in. And honestly, I think if the Jets would have started the kid, Chris Streveler, which most of it are not familiar with, he came out of South Dakota. It's kind of funny that he did look like an athletic Tebow, and he was wearing Tebow's number. But I think Chris Streveler would have had a fighting chance to get a W for the Jets. He was 10 of 15 for 90 yards in the quarter and a half that he played. He looked much better than Zach Wilson. Conversely, Trevor Lawrence, they've got the real deal in Jacksonville. And I questioned it all the way till about, we'll say 6 games into the season. I said on many occasions in the first month to almost month and a half that he looked lost, and something finally clicked. And maybe Zach Wilson can be saved by going elsewhere. Maybe Zach Wilson can be saved by going to, first of all, get him out of New York City. Get him out of the big market. Send him to a smaller market. Now, obviously, Jacksonville's not looking for a quarterback, but something like that. They've already tried one time in Carolina to take quarterback off the Jets' trash heap, so I don't think they would do that again in Carolina. But I think he almost needs to sit behind a veteran for a season or so. And I'm talking about an established veteran. And give him an opportunity to watch the game, film study, and you never know. You definitely see the flashes. You see the flashes where you see why he was drafted as high as he was. The problem with those flashes are they happen once every 7 or 8 plays. And that's not going to get it done in the National Football League. Not at that position. Not at any position, quite frankly. But that position has got to be manned by someone who looks like that they have a clue on what's going on out there on the football field. And so they're going to have to figure that out. But I don't think there's any way Zach Wilson comes back next year. I think he's going to be traded, if not just straight out released. We were beating around the bush last night. I thought, one of the best landing places he could be would be for the Packers to trade Aaron Rodgers and do a total rebuild with Jordan Love and go let Zach Wilson sit behind Jordan Love. And then within a season, you could have a true competition. And I, for one, would think that Aaron Rodgers would love the idea of going to the Jets. They've got a good defense. They've got a pretty good receiving core as well, and an up-and-coming receiver in Garrett Wilson that when they get him the ball, he's incredible. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Bobby's going to join us, and we are going to hit up some football talk, NFL Week 16, some games that we like, stupid underdog picks, locks are on the way, over-unders, all that getting you ready for one heck of a Christmas and Christmas Eve weekend. We will be back in a flash here on Braves Country on WQEE and wherever you stream Braves Country HD.
I got back to the hotel at 7:30 this morning, and I went up to the desk to leave a wake-up call for 7 o'clock. The lady goes, "It's past 7. No, the next one. You got another one coming around, don't you? Why don't you just put me on that one?"
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
It's the best in sports and entertainment, and get locked in and locked down with Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. with your host, me, Ryan O'Neal, each and every morning, right here with the best in sports and entertainment, all the way from professional sports to college sports to River Dragons hockey and everything in between, including some of the very best local and national guests. It's the Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.
Winter is the perfect time to start planning for your healthy, pest-free spring lawn with True Green, America's #1 lawn care company. True Green's science-based approach and local expertise will help give your lawn the year-round care it needs to be thick and weed-free. Go to truegreen.com/radio to save 50% on your first service. Just call 866-946-5956 or go to truegreen.com today and get a lawn to be proud of.
Hey folks, this is Mark White with The Mark White Show, and you can tune into The Mark White Show every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. right here on Rock 99 WQEE The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com at Braves Country.
Hey, where's my tickets to the Sonics game? They were here just a second ago. Somebody stole my tickets to the Sonics game! This stinks! This is total BS! This is... Oh, got it. Got it. Okay, where's the French fries? I ordered French fries. This stinks! This is total BS! Eddie Vermoyen's gonna... Oh, here they are. Where's my power bar? I had a power bar here. Someone stole my power bar! This stinks! This is total BS! This is... Oh, here it is. Hey, where the hell's my assorted tape? This is total... Oh, got it.
Welcome back. We have some breaking news in the NBA. If anyone still cares about that, Anthony Davis out with a stress fracture. Shocker for, they say indefinitely. I guess that means still free agency. Welcoming on to the show is Mr. Bobby Schneider. Bobby, how the hell are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm a bit cold, but I'm doing well.
Yeah, I saw the weather up in Nashville is supposed to be really cold. It's in the single digits, right?
Yep. It's, I think it's about 8 out right now. 8 degrees. It's cold.
What's it looking like for the game tomorrow? Tennessee, Houston.
Is that here in that's here in Tennessee,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early kickoff, noon your time.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be just as cold tomorrow. There's a bit of a cold front going on. And, you know, I don't, at least there's not going to be any snow to my knowledge. That might change the forecast here. Seems to do a lot. The wind,
windy.
It may be windy. I don't think it'll be too much of a problem. I think we'll be very reliant on the run tomorrow anyway, so shouldn't be too much of a problem anyways.
I know there's a lot of bad weather all over the place. Cleveland's supposed to get atrocious weather.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're at in your fantasy football season, but I'm actually streaming the Browns defense. And in one league, I decided, you know what? I'm going to stream the Saints defense. I think that game could finish 3-2, right? It's just like there's supposed to be an incredible amount of wind and it's supposed to be freezing cold and they're expecting some kind of precipitation. I would think it's going to be some kind of sleet and snow mix considering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got Browns defense for my line for one of my lineups. Actually, the only lineup I'm still in the playoffs in. I'll have them starting this week, so I'm gonna need Dalton to go out there and throw some picks.
Just pulled up. See, I'm on a pretty good site that's pretty accurate. The problem is the icons that they put for the games. They're so old school, very generic, so that they don't get banged for copyrights. Some of them you can't make out which team that they're doing, but so where's that game? Chicago, the Bills and the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. 7 degrees. These are all at kickoff. 7 degrees projected, 22-mile-an-hour winds.
Mm.
Cleveland, the game we were just talking about. Overcast. Snow projected, 9 degrees will be the high, 28-mile-an-hour winds.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah, they're going to be running the ball a lot, I imagine, in that one.
Man, some of these, I don't even know how they talk the guys into getting off the bus and playing. Man, you can have my game checked.
Especially when the team's already losing, man.
Yeah, like a team. Well, I guess the Saints are technically still in it, but
true.
Ish. Let me see if I can find any more. Now, this is one of the better ones, San Francisco, which is a little surprising because San Francisco normally gets really windy climates this time of year. But they're only 58 degrees at a 3 mile an hour, so that might be one of your highest scoring games.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas isn't too bad.
Only problem with that 49ers matchup is that defense. I don't think Washington's going to have a ton of luck scoring. I think it'll be if Washington keeps it close. I think it'll be a low scoring game.
Right, but I'm talking about having to there's a difference between saying, "Hey, a team's going up against a really good defense," and a team. I always reference that game that I did last year, play-by-play, Bills and New England, and the wind was so bad that New England only threw one pass the entire game.
Yep.
And still won somehow. One of the ones I think a lot of people were expecting, higher scoring because of the matchups, but I feel like you do have to look at the actual weather. Mm-hmm. Kansas City tomorrow. 8 degrees will be the high. 15 mile an hour winds, which is still pretty brisk. But the ones that always jump out at me are the ones that are 20 miles an hour or higher.
Yeah.
And so that gives us Chicago, the Cleveland game, and the Pittsburgh game's pretty close to 20, high of 13 degrees. The only thing that's really smooth sailing is the Green Bay-Miami game down in Miami. It's 50 degrees and 10 mile an hour winds. I mean, that's basically
I'm loving it down there.
That's vacation weather compared to right? Oh, mercy. Some games that you're looking forward to this weekend. Told you to grab a few, and we'll discuss them. I've got a few myself. What's the number one game on the NFL slate this weekend that you're most excited to watch?
I'm most excited to watch Packers-Dolphins, and I know we've kind of thought the Packers were out of it, but they're kind of creeping back into it. They're 6-8, which isn't good, but if they go on a winning streak, there's a chance that they sneak in the playoffs, and they're playing a Dolphins team that has looked good, but they're on a 3-game losing streak. So I really think this could go either way. If I had to pick, I'd say the Dolphins win, but this could be a crucial game for both teams.
I know technically they're in the playoffs, but they have to go in and beat Miami before I believe that they're actually still in the playoff race. Because when you look at the actual standings of it all, I get that they're 6-8, but they're going to have to jump 3 teams to be able to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Detroit's one of them. Seattle, I'm not even counting Seattle because I kind of figure at the end of the weekend, if Green Bay pulls off the upset in Miami, they'll be toe-to-toe with Seattle. I don't see Seattle going into Kansas City and beating the Chiefs.
I'm with you there.
And Washington, they'll probably lose in San Fran. That'll make them 7-1, but they'll still be a half game behind the Commanders. I think one of the biggest wild cards is Detroit, and it's one of the games that I'm looking forward to the matchup because Detroit's on the road once again. And they're playing a Carolina team that's very average, but they're also like a sneaky average type team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're hosting the game. Weather shouldn't be a big factor in it, but you got to figure. So Detroit has gone on this tear where they've won 6 of their last 7. And 3 of those wins, so half of them have been on the road. You wonder what if they almost seem due for a bad game, right?
Yeah, I'm with you there. And the Panthers are certainly a team that could knock off a team like the Lions, who they're underdogs against. Especially
because one of Detroit's Achilles heel is the run defense, and the Panthers love to run the ball.
Yeah.
if the Lions do find a way to win that game, though, it could be interesting down the stretch because what you're talking about, the Packers. So the Lions host the Bears next week, but after that, the final game of the season, that is in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
And if Green Bay beats Miami, but once again, I know a lot of them are wanting to beat the drum for the Packers because they're a popular team, so they're trying to get the fan interest.
Mm-hmm.
But Green Bay has got to win it in Miami before I can take them serious. Because let's take it easy. Beating the Bears and beating the Rams doesn't really put you into the conversation, right?
Absolutely not. I'm with you. They'll have to win. They'll have to win tomorrow. And if they don't, that puts them about too far behind in my mind to get back into it. This is a must-win game for them.
Green Bay. By the way, after this week, they are at home. They got to play the Vikings next. So that's a tough back stretch as well. And they were, granted, it was the first week of the season, but they were thumped in Minnesota 23-7.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers is going to have to play out of his mind to beat Tua in Miami and then beat the Minnesota Vikings back-to-back week. Do you even set that up for it to mean anything?
Mm-hmm.
But I do have Christian Watson on my fantasy team, so I'm pulling for him. I just don't have a lot of faith in him.
I'm with you. It's hard to believe that they can make something happen with this season, but if they win out the last 3 games, that's the most they can do at this point, and they're still in it. So we'll just have to see how this plays out.
Another game that I've got circled and I'm glad we're actually getting it here locally is Minnesota, New York. Minnesota's hosting the Giants. And that's an interesting matchup to me because Minnesota, they've got to start putting teams away to have a little more momentum heading towards the playoffs. That was a great win against the Colts last weekend. But how did it get to 33-0, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as much as you want to applaud them and say, hey, man, they came back from 33-0, anything's possible. If you play that bad in the first half in a playoff game against pretty much anyone in the NFC, you're not coming back from 33 points. So that offense has got to be clicking on all cylinders, and I think the Giants are a pretty good test.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I mean, if you let a team like the 49ers, for example, in the playoffs, if you let them get out to even a double-digit lead, they'll put you away.
Yeah, 13
they can't let. They cannot let that happen in the playoffs. They've got to play. They've got to have stronger first half.
What other games do you like this weekend?
I'm looking at Texans-Titans. I know we had touched on it a few minutes ago, but Titans really need a lead or a win because that AFC South lead is slipping fast, and I know they'll have a rookie under. Yeah, they'll have a rookie under center, so it only makes things a little bit tougher. But I'll be interested to see how Malik Willis plays and see if the Titans can get the job done in a must-win game with how the Jaguars are storming back.
It's looking more and more like Tannehill might be done for at least the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, with consecutive injuries to that right ankle, there's a chance that he could be done for, like you said, the next 2 weeks, but also potentially the rest of the season is what I've heard. It's not likely, but there's a chance he could miss that much time.
Justin was on earlier in the week, and he said that he's convinced that they are holding him for that final game against the Jaguars, that they kind of look at it as that's going to be the game for the division anyway, so what's the point of even worrying about it?
Be a bit risky, though. You don't want to lose this. You don't want to lose this Texans game, though. That'd be a bad loss.
I agree with that. But even if you win, the only way that game does not mean anything next week, in week 18, Tennessee-Jacksonville, Tennessee has to beat the Cowboys, and the Jaguars have to lose to the Texans.
Not likely.
Their best chance of being able to get that sewn up before the end of the year was last night And Zach Wilson was just absolutely atrocious. There was no way that and look, I thought Strevler did a really good job of coming back, but I also felt like the coaching staff waited too long. You can't wait that long to put a guy in who is limited. You're having to basically run a Tim Tebow type of offense, right?
Yeah.
You can't wait until he's down by 2 touchdowns with about a quarter left in the game, because then there's no room for error. And if he somehow would have gotten that first touchdown on that first drive that stalled inside the red zone on the 4th and 2, there was just a bad pass. But remember, right before that, there was a pass that was dropped. But I guess my point is, if somehow he scores that touchdown and it's 16-10, there's a chance that the Jets would have pulled off an all-time shocker.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that's gone now. And now you're looking at a team that is going to have to, as far as Tennessee, they're giving up 3. They're at home. The weather's going to be a factor. No quarterback's going to be a factor. Houston appears to be playing better football, but I still go off of what I was seeing last week and what I've seen for the last few weeks, even though the Titans have lost these 4 games in a row. They still got that run game there. And the last time that they played Houston, they didn't hardly throw the ball.
Yeah.
And they mashed them. You'll look back at the score and you'll see 17-10. It was not that close. It was 17-3, and I'm sure you remember because I'm sure you watched it. But but the Houston Texans scored a garbage touchdown at the very end of the game, leaving them with like an onside kick for a chance to win the game. Pretty much Tennessee was playing prevent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Titans, they need to go in, and I know I'd like to see Willis throw the ball just to see how he does. I want to see him play, see if there's anything there with him. But they need to run the ball a lot with Henry. They need to win on the ground. They need to put this game away pretty handily.
Henry is going to have to do Henry-type things against Houston tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, what has he gone 4 games in a row with 200+ against the Texans?
Yeah.
He had 219 and 2 touchdowns earlier this year. He's going to need a similar – and absolutely. I feel like they're going to sell out. But they pretty much sold out last time because, once again, Tannehill did not play.
Mm-hmm.
It's a similar situation. This time they're at home. And if this doesn't reek of desperation, what does? You've got to, look, I don't care what Vrabel has done so far. He's got to win this game tomorrow at home.
Absolutely.
Because if you win this game tomorrow, you definitely put yourself in a position to where you've got to beat Jacksonville at the end of the year, but at least there's something to play for at the end of the year. You lose this tomorrow, that game at the end of the year might not mean anything, and it may not mean anything because you've lost out.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have to win, because you don't want to be in a must-win game against the Cowboys, and the Cowboys are beatable. They're not, the best team in the league by any means. The Titans could beat them, but I wouldn't pick the Titans in most scenarios to beat the Cowboys.
All right, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do the lock, stupid underdog picks, and we'll also answer the question from Maverick about Conforto. We'll be back in a flash here on Braves Country as we are keeping you rolling towards the weekend, a Christmas weekend, with a lot of football.
If you're making sandwiches, always leave the knife hanging over the sink in case you want one later. Be a man.
I'm 7-0 this season. You auto-drafted. That's what all the great GMs do. They delegate.
You didn't do anything.
Yeah, I did. I set the cue.
Without fantasy football, what would friends talk about?
I almost wore shorts today.
Oh.
I was going to do a sweatshirt shorts combo. Switched to pants instead.
Armchair.
Hey, sports fans. The Key has a brand new show. Braves Country is coming your way weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Drive time on WQEE. Braves Country is a Southern sports talk show with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. We'll be talking the Atlanta Braves and Major League Baseball, along with everything important to sports fans in Braves Country. the SEC, ACC, Big Ten, and the National Football League, and the big sports news of the day. That's Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. Weekdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. right here on WQEE The Key, 99.1 FM, and simulcasting on youtube.com/@BravesCountry.
Make contact. A collective psychosis is sweeping the nation. We're in the thick of the haze craze, and Elysian is introducing an altered state of IPA. Contact Haze is a tangled chemistry of mild haze, low bitterness, and an explosion of hop aroma. This hazy IPA bursts with notes of bright raspberry, currant, citrus, guava, and passion fruit. Available in 6-pack cans in stores. Make contact.
Welcome back to Braves Country. Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 to 5 p.m. Drive time on WQEE. Welcome back. I see the question from Maverick asking about Conforto going to the Giants. Look, that was just trying to soften the blow after losing out on the Correa sweepstakes. Michael Conforto hasn't played in well over a year. I don't know. And look, he was not exactly the bee's knees when he was playing. And I don't think it was a very good deal for the Giants either, because he has an opt-out clause. And when did it start where all these teams are willing to give players who have performed poorly in the year before a short deal with an opt-out clause, which basically means is if he goes out and plays really well, you're not going to be able to retain him. And if he is crap, guess what? He's going to opt in, and you're going to have to pay him. I don't know where the logic comes from that. There's no way I would do that. But as far as the Diaz move, he's going to be end of the bench guy. I don't think they're bringing back Duvall, and I hope they look. I'm a big Duvall fan as well, but he's garnering somewhere between 5 to 7-ish a year, and I don't know if they believe that he's worth that. I think they will try to do what they've done in the past, and that is make a trade for him at midseason. I just think that they are at a situation now where if they're not getting a big ticket guy, they've got a budget, they're not going to go over it. And you're essentially looking at your team right now. There may be a move coming, but the only way you're going to be able to do anything is you've got to be able to move Ozuna, and nobody wants him at this point. But Diaz goes onto the 40-man, and that'll be we'll see how that goes. But football takes center stage this weekend, and got to get to the stupid underdog picks as well as the locks. And I'll give you the stupid underdog pick so far, Bobby, so you'll know where you can pick. The Bears, Seahawks, and Washington Commanders have been taken.
Let's see. I'll go Falcons +7 here. I know the Ravens overall are probably a better team, but with Huntley under center, not too confident in the Ravens. The over-under is 34.5, which is absurdly low, meaning this could go either way in my mind. And the Falcons, they have a pretty big spread here, so just coming within a touchdown, that would get me at least 2 points on my total. So I'll take Falcons +7 here.
And I don't think that total's low enough.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be like 13-3. I think it's going to
be ugly.
13 degrees and a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind.
Oh, man.
Now, it is going to be clear, But that's what the prognostication is right now. So you're going to take Atlanta as your stupid underdog. And what is your lock?
My lock. I'm going to go Seahawks.
The locks that have been taken: Wake Forest, the Dolphins, and the Bengals.
All right. Well, mine's safe then. I'm staying in the NFL here. I'm on a little bit of a cold streak with these locks. I'm going to go Seahawks plus 10.5 though this week in Kansas City. I think the weather is going to keep the scoring a little bit lower than we expect in this game. And the Chiefs have let a lot of teams come close between the Broncos and the Texans the last 2 weeks. A lot of teams can come back and put up points to cover against the Chiefs, that's for sure. And I think the Seahawks are capable of doing that. So I got them at plus 10.5.
We've got a nice little competition going for the stupid underdogs. So we've got 3 weeks left. Doug still has a puncher's chance. He's within 19 of the lead. And he took Seattle to try to win straight outs to try to make a I've got a 1.5 point lead on you right now.
Oh, I had I think I won with Giants plus 4.5. That's what I got. Yeah,
you did. You won the Giants, but I won big time with NC
Bigger
Central
games.
upsetting Deion Sanders and Jackson State.
Yep.
So,
You've taken the lead, but at plus 10.5, if the Seahawks can win, I'll get a good amount of points this week. So I'm hoping they do.
Yeah, if Seattle wins, then Doug would get within punching. Like I said, we still got 2 more weeks, and then we'll reset for the playoff underdogs. Give everyone else a chance to, guys like Joey and Tones and Steven and everyone a chance to reset and have a chance to actually win it. But this has been one of the better ones that we've done because past couple of years I've won going away, but I was so ice cold at the beginning of the year. I mean, I could not buy. I would cover here and there, but I couldn't get an actual W. And finally, one of the ones
back
that made the big jump for me was the South Carolina upset of Clemson and NC Central. Those are 2 of my bigger ones. But you've been pretty consistent all year. Doug jumped up to that huge lead, and he's just slowly petering out.
Yeah. But I've hopefully I can jump back into the lead this week. We'll see how this goes. But normally I wouldn't be pulling for an NFC North rival, but in this scenario I will.
An AFC North rival.
NFC West. I don't know why I said NFC North. I meant NFC West.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does it matter at this point? It's not like the Cardinals are going anywhere.
Nope. Just waiting for the offseason, man. Hoping for a top 3 pick.
Yeah, look, in theory, it's just better for you long term because the more wins Seattle gets, the worse draft picks they get, right?
Well, I'm not worried about their first round pick. I'm worried about the Broncos because they have the Broncos first. And the more the Broncos keep losing,
that's
the
true.
worse shape we're going to be in. So I'd like to have at least a higher pick.
Detroit has somebody's pick up there at the top, don't they?
Detroit has the Rams pick.
Yeah.
So I got that at least. I won't have to worry about the Rams having a high pick.
Unless they can figure out Matthew Stafford, you're not going to have to worry about the Rams for a while.
Mm-hmm. I think they're heading towards a long rebuild. So that'd be my guess. I think we'll see a lot of them retiring this year. I know they kind of made that group pact that they'd all retire at once, that Rams core. But I think McVay, I think he might retire pretty soon. I think Donald's probably on the way out, Stafford as well. So it could be some tough years ahead for the Rams.
Couple of pieces of news that have broke out over this afternoon, in case you've missed it. Aaron Donald likely done for the season. He is out against the Broncos, and it'll be interesting to me to see if he actually comes back and plays another year. Because remember, he was really close to retirement last year.
Not only that, he had I think he had put in a letter, and he had a letter saying that he would retire to the league, I believe, or he was going to, or something like that. But at the last minute, he changed his mind. So this might be it.
The only way that I see him coming back is if that world championship that he won last year got him a taste for it, right? And he just wants to play as long as he can because he enjoyed winning that much.
Yeah.
But considering he was talking about leaving and retiring at such a young age, and they were so bad this year, he's going to have to really be sold a bill of goods to talk him into coming back this next year. Also, real quick, in the Independence Bowl, Louisiana has just taken a 10-0 lead, but they do have a flag down, so that field goal may come off the board. But they are up on Houston. If you remember the beginning of the year, Houston was supposed to be the end all that beats all.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did they lose, so they're 7-5 now on the year. And remember, beginning of the season, they were top 25. There were talks about that they could be this year's Cincinnati.
Yeah.
It almost makes me wonder if they're even motivated in this game.
When a team has that high hopes, early on in the season, and they end up 7-5 in a crap bowl, then
speaking of what we were just talking about with the weather, there's a pretty strong wind. It's pretty cold down there today in Shreveport. The over-under was 56.5. It's 10-0, and there's 9 minutes left in the second.
I mean, if you can get in on over-unders that are that high when the weather is going to be terrible in the game they're playing, I'd get in on that. I don't think there's going to be a lot of high-scoring games this weekend in the NFL.
I grabbed it. And it's really disappointing, too, because for so many folks, and I know there's a lot of people out there that don't care about the fantasy aspect of it, but just look at it from the gambling aspect. But for so many folks, this is the semifinals for fantasy football, and you're scraping trying to find where am I going to get points from.
Yeah.
I had Garrett Wilson in a league I had to start him. If I didn't start him, I'm talking about going out there and picking up just like some bum, right? And luckily, I didn't realize it until this morning that the guy that I'm playing against had Zay Jones. I was like, whew. So I was disappointed that Wilson only got like 8 or 9 points, but he got 3. I was like, I feel a lot better right now. But I was praying that I didn't wake up this morning and find out that I was going up against the Jags defense. I was like, oh, thank God. There was a league I wanted to stream him in, and because of the waiver rules, you couldn't pick them up until today, which doesn't work, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense.
I was like, man, that is a perfect opportunity to start them. And once I saw the rain and the weather and whatnot, I'm telling you, when it comes to betting and it comes to fantasy, real betting, et cetera, this time of year, your best friend is the Weather Channel, so to speak, because you can kind of read the tea leaves. And the one thing I've said it a million times, I'll say it again. Pay attention to what the wind is going to be. Don't worry about, it's going to snow. There's a lot of high-scoring games in snow. Pay attention to what that wind is going to be, because if you've ever played football, if you've ever tried to play quarterback in the wind, I played football, but I didn't play on any kind of high level. But even if you go outside in the backyard and the wind is whipping, you try to throw the football with your buddy. Think about the difference it makes when that wind is whipping, or even if it's a crosswind. I thought it was pretty interesting last night. I believe it was the Jags kicker that he played the wind perfectly on one of the first field goals. It was a crosswind, and he kicked the ball into the wind, and the wind carried it into the uprights.
Huh.
And you could see it. It almost looked like a perfectly placed golf shot. If he would have tried to kick that thing dead on, that ball would have ended up in the concession stands. Real quick, before we hit the top of the hour, we'll go ahead and move some things around. Told you to come up with a gift for your Arizona Cardinals for the upcoming season, the new season, I would think. If you could give the Arizona Cardinals one gift, what would that be?
I would send them Sean Payton in a box. Just send him on to Arizona. I know the Saints will have to give them a pick for Sean Payton, but normally in those coach trades, you don't have to give up a ton. I know the Bucs, when we traded them Bruce Arians, they only gave up a 7th for him. So it wouldn't take a whole lot.
Is not Sean Payton.
He's not by any means, but, to get a quality coach for a 7th, I think, it wouldn't take a bunch of picks to get Sean Payton
I think
away
you're
from the
talking
Saints.
about a 2nd round, maybe get away with the 3rd round.
Yeah, it could be a 3rd, could be a 2nd.
You get rid of Kingsbury, but are they going to do it? Are they going to?
Seems like it's.
They just locked him and the general manager up and the quarterback up for the foreseeable future.
Well, I tell you what, I've been keeping up with it close, as you'd imagine, being a Cardinals fan, and it's looking like it's going to be a new regime next season. I'm not trying to give myself false hope. I truly think it. With the GM going on a leave of absence, I think this is his way of parting ways with the organization, and it doesn't seem like Cliff's going to be back next year, whether that be him stepping down or potentially getting fired. All signs point to him being gone. So we'll be looking at a head coaching change likely, and at the top of my list, I've got Sean Payton, of course.
See there, thanks for the update, Mav. The Toronto Blue Jays and Arizona Diamondbacks are in agreement. Varsho to the Blue Jays, and the Diamondbacks are getting prospect Gabriel Moreno. That's a pretty big deal for Toronto. Good hitting catcher. I saw an article today that was ranking the top 10 lineups in baseball, and it was such a knee-jerk reaction. They had the Mets as number 1, which I don't believe the Mets are. They had the Phillies down like 8 or 9. And I'm sorry, but that Phillies offense was cranking last year. They had the Braves middle of the road, but Toronto is on the one that shocked me. They were like 4th or 5th on the list. Toronto's got a darn good offense. And now they're adding Varsho. That's a big deal. If I'm going to give me get a gift, I'll tell you what, do one for the Titans. Man, they got to get a quarterback. That's really what it all comes down to.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you maneuver your way out of that last year with Tannehill, but he has fallen apart. What little you were getting out of him a couple years ago, you're not getting any of that anymore. And you've got to get a quarterback, and it may be through the draft. It may be maybe it's Tennessee that takes the flyer on a Zach Wilson and see if they can fix him. But they've got to get a quarterback. I've got a feeling though that 1st round draft pick, they're going to go after a receiver.
I think it'll be a receiver or a tackle, depending on what they do with Luan.
I think it'll probably be a receiver. Because I think that they're going to want to pair up another guy, probably a guy who can stretch the field a little more with Treylon Burks.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I feel like Vrabel feels pretty comfortable as far as having job security. So he's not in a panic mode. But, man, they've got to do something as far as the quarterback goes. It's a pretty good team with a heck of a running back that they're wasting the prime years of his career. Because Robinson traded A.J. Brown. And a number of other things happened, but that's the one that jumps out at me. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into some picks, some over-unders, and some point spreads. Keep it locked in here on The Key and Braves Country HD, wherever you stream.
Are you an adult?
Yeah.
And you went out last night?
Yeah.
Introducing a hangover.
What's that?
Surprise, idiot. You went out and actually had fun last night, but your body is here to remind you that's not allowed. With a hangover, you can have a light breakfast to soothe your tummy. See if drinking more will help. And finally, start your day at 6 p.m.
I went out last night for casual drinks with a friend, and now I can't even form a coherent thought.
Try it today.
Hey, sports fans. Weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Drive Time on WQEE. Braves Country is a Southern sports talk show with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. That's Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks. Weekdays, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. right here on WQEE 99.1 FM.
Your true friends are the people in your life that totally get your inside jokes, your unique style, most important, what you want to eat. Taco Bell knows that when you get together with your real friends, it doesn't matter what you're doing, but hey, it might as well be something that everybody can get into, like the Taco and Burrito Cravings Pack with 4 crunchy tacos and 4 beefy 5-layer burritos. So even if you're all sitting around doing absolutely nothing, you know you'll still have a good time. It's Taco Bell's Taco and Burrito Cravings Pack. Get it for the friends that get it.
Dixie Handle Company, 5 generations of the Strickland family have produced quality hardwood farm and garden tools, wooden shutters, and custom furniture. This small business has been owned and operated since 1992 and ships to customers across the world. If you're looking for the highest quality tool handles, Dixie Handle Company is your place. Every item is hand-picked to your specifications. If it's made of wood, they do it. Call now, 931-722-3395. That's 931-722-3395. Or go online to DixieHandle.com. The Dixie Handle Company. Welcome to Craftsmanship, a proud sponsor of Braves Country Baseball. You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia. Home of Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com @Braves Country.
This is the part in the Lifetime movie version where I get up to pee.
Of all the cheers during the Steeler dynasty, the most welcome was heard in 1974.
Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. We got a feeling. Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. We got a feeling.
Art Rooney's team won the Super Bowl in 1974 and again in 1975 against the Dallas Cowboys. 2 years later, they defeated Dallas again for Super Bowl win number 3. Then in 1980, they won over the Los Angeles Rams in Super Bowl 14. The Pittsburgh Steelers made up for 40 years of defeat with a decade of victory. A decade unequaled for sustained excellence. 8 straight playoff appearances, 4 Super Bowl championships. The Pittsburgh Steelers of the 1970s. The best team ever.
Armchair.
Welcome back. Figured we'd play that clip about the Steelers considering passing of Franco Harris, and today is officially the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception. Now, Bobby, you're quite a few years younger than most of the folks listening, most of the folks who are big sports fans. What do you know about that Immaculate Reception? Did it ring a bell to you at all, or did you have to look it up?
It did, and was that, I know it was the Steelers, and was that the Franco Harris deflected catch for the touchdown? Was it that one?
And it's the one, and he took it to his death, but he would never confirm or deny if he caught the ball.
Yep.
Because back then, you didn't have all the camera angles, and what you see, and honestly, the only reason why you get as good a camera angle as you got in that game was because the NFL Films was there on the sidelines. So back then, you only had a few cameras up in the booth, and it was NFL Films that catches the now infamous video of where you see him scooping it off from the deflection, and you can't tell if the nose of that ball hit the turf or if he got it before it hit the turf.
Mm-hmm.
So for folks who haven't seen it, the camera cuts it off, we'll say about 3/4 of the way down of the football. And that's all you see. And they've asked him and asked him and asked him. Raiders on the field swear that he scooped it off the ground. They asked him over and over, and he would never confirm or deny if he actually caught it. He would just say, "I scored, we won. That's all you need to know." And that, so he took that. He held true to his word. He said he would take it to his grave, and he has. And what is so big about that play too that a lot of folks may not realize, even folks that lived it, is that as far as the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that was their very first win in playoff history, number one. That led to their first of the 4 Super Bowls they won in the 70s. So if that ball's called incomplete and says the ball's on the ground, we don't know if any of this ever happens, because the Raiders might have been the ones that, and the Raiders did have great success pretty much in the 70s. It was Raiders, Dolphins, and Steelers. Those were the 3 main ones that kind of took turns winning Super Bowls. And as far as the NFC, it was primarily Cowboys. The Vikings got to 4 of them, but they couldn't win one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, once you hit the 80s, it's the 49ers and whatnot. But if the Immaculate Reception never happens, it was a 7-6 ball game. The waning seconds, they were 60, 70 yards away from the end zone. So it wasn't really even a Hail Mary, so to speak. It was just a deep pass over the left side that gets deflected by a defensive back, and the rest is history. And if you go back and watch the replay, which I've watched several times, I'm not old enough to have seen it live, but I had heard about it so much as a kid. So when YouTube came around, you could go back and watch. If you go back and watch it, the guy that gets stiff-armed by Franco Harris at the end, if you watch him during the play, when the ball got deflected, he kind of lets up, almost to the point where he's about to celebrate because the game is going to be won. And then he realized by the time he puts on the brakes and starts chasing Harris, who Harris, by the way, was a rookie at that point, that if he stays focused, he probably gets Harris. So there you have that. But they'll be playing tomorrow night, Steelers and Raiders, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of celebration and memory of Franco Harris. And passed away, I believe he was 72. And it's hard to believe that was 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because though I'm not old enough to have watched it, I grew up hearing about it. Just constantly the Immaculate Reception. But anyways, by the way, Maverick, I don't like the Cowboys this week. I know Jalen Hurts isn't playing, but I think they're giving up too many points. That line keeps going 4.5 to 5, 4.5 to 5. I think if you wait till kickoff, you can get it closer to 5. The Eagles are good enough without Jalen Hurts to be able to be competitive. I don't know if they can win the game, but I feel like the Gardner Minshew can navigate that offense enough where it's going to be competitive. And weather shouldn't be a big factor at that game. No, 3-mile-an-hour wind. Of course, they're in a dome. If they want to, they can close it. But 34 degrees. We'll see if they actually. I don't know if they'll keep the roof open or not.
If it's that cold, I doubt it.
I don't know how it helps the Cowboys to keep it open. You're playing a team from Philadelphia, right?
Mm-hmm. It won't bother them too much.
Nah. But anyways, moving on to, I do think the Bulldogs, though, are going to cover against Ohio State. I think it's 6.5 still. It's really strange that line hasn't moved much.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a lot of people are focusing on the NFL, and once we get, what are we, a week away from the college football playoffs? A week from tomorrow. So we'll be making those predictions then. All right, let me throw a couple of lines out at you here, and want to get your take on it. Let's go ahead and do the Phillies, the Eagles, and the Cowboys. The line right now is 4.5. Philly getting 4.5. Which way are you leaning?
I think we're going to see how much Hurts matters to that offense. I think this will be interesting to see. But I have a theory with backup quarterbacks, and I don't think it can be sustainable success with backups oftentimes. But in this instance, the Cowboys don't have a lot to game plan with Minshew. They haven't seen him much, especially with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They haven't seen a lot of tape with him. So it'll be something that they're not terribly prepared for, I don't think. There's only so much they can do to prepare for a guy who doesn't play much. So I think the Eagles can hang in there. I think they can cover. I don't think they'll win, but I think they'll cover the 4.5.
I think they will too. And assuming weather's not an issue, I don't think they make that decision until game day. But assuming that weather's not an issue, I think that over's really low. It's 47.5.
I can see this being with it being in a dome, and even if it's not closed, it still isn't as cold or windy as the other places. I could see this being the highest scoring game of the week, possibly.
Yeah, I think Dallas is going to be able to move the ball, and I still think Philly's going to look. Dallas's defense has not played well in about 5 or 6 weeks. I still believe Cowboys will find a way to win, but it would not shock me anything with Gardner Minshew. And I'm with you. I think Jalen Hurts is extremely important to their success. But in a 1 week vacuum, Minshew can pull off an upset.
Yeah.
What about Minnesota, New York? Vikings giving up 4.
Man, after I took them, I think last week -3.5 against the Colts, and they were so close. It's hard to be too confident in them again, but I don't think they're going to let the Giants get out to as big of a lead necessarily as they've given up in the past. I think they'll learn from that, and I think the Vikings cover.
By the way, our Twitter poll is finally ran, and the conversation about yesterday is Die Hard, a Christmas movie. No was the answer by, 63% to 36% for yes. Still way too high of people voting for that as being a Christmas movie. I feel like you're young enough to think it's a Christmas movie.
I know it I haven't watched it, but I know it's like an action movie. No, I know it's an action movie that takes place on Christmas. It's not based around
It takes place during a Christmas party.
Okay. Yeah.
I brought up a good point that I've never paid attention to. I haven't seen it in a while. Don't get me wrong. It's a good movie, and you definitely need to watch it. But it's not a Christmas movie.
Maybe I'll watch it on Christmas.
But he brings up a good point that someone pointed out recently that if you pay attention to what's going on in the background, Southern Cal and Notre Dame football is being played in the background. And of course, it's typically played on Thanksgiving weekend. So and we know that regular season college football is never played on Christmas. So that's a defining answer right there to me. We've got one of the better ones. Let's hit the bowl game tomorrow. San Diego State is giving up 6.5 points to MTSU.
Oh. You know what I want? I even got the hoodie on right now. Come on now.
Yeah.
You know what I got to go with? I got to go
That's
with
the game I'm watching tomorrow night. I could care less
Yeah.
about Pittsburgh and the Raiders, two teams that have a combined win of like five wins at this point.
I'll tune in. I'd like to think that that MTSU covers. I'm not certain. They've had a solid season in terms of how things have gone in recent years. They've actually had a decent season. Being in a bowl game is a good accomplishment. So you know what? Give me MTSU to cover. I'll be a homer.
That's interesting. The deal for Varsho to the Blue Jays, they also get Gurriel. Now that makes it a little meatier for Arizona. Arizona's quietly having a pretty good offseason. I know they probably don't like giving up Varsho, but I do know that they have that they are loaded in their minor leagues at that position. And Varsho, those looked upon as a guy that can play catcher. He's realistically an outfielder. He's defensively, he's okay behind the plate, but he's not elite. I think MTSU is going to cover the spread. I'm taking them tomorrow. Let's go. I got it at 7.5 back when it was 7.5.
That's a good time to take it in case they lose by a touchdown.
Middle Tennessee is put a pretty good season together. And I think it's cool that they're going to play on Christmas Eve, give you something to watch. Because that is a brutal NFL. I'm really surprised that game didn't get flexed.
Yeah.
So many other games that you could have put on there. New York, Minnesota, Cincinnati, New England. I know they wouldn't be able to move the Cowboys game because Fox has a stranglehold on that one. That right there was a bidding war. But so many other games that could have been flexed. I would have rather watched Lions and Panthers.
Yeah.
Bills and Bears. Give me Bills and Bears.
Well, even at least in that Lions game, they at least have one of the teams in the playoff hunt. And actually, both of them. Panthers still have a shot at the division, oddly enough.
That's what I'm saying. And instead they're putting two teams on that don't have anything on the line. Bills are a 9-point favorite in Chicago tomorrow. Windy conditions, cold conditions.
Windy and cold, that doesn't spell a high-scoring game. And I don't think, as great as the Bills' offense can be, I don't think they'll score a ton. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think the Bears will cover. I still think they'll probably lose by a touchdown, though, if I had to make a guess.
Yeah,
I think they'll cover the 9.
That 9, I mean, the only thing that really matters is did they cover the spread?
Yeah. Stay within 9, we're good.
When it's all said and done, did they cover the spread? Real quick update on the Independence Bowl. It's now 13-0, 4.5 minutes left in the second quarter. Louisiana with the 13-0 lead. Tonight's game, by the way, Wake Forest, Missouri. I really like that one. I'm looking forward to that one. Wake Forest is a 2.5-point favorite. It's climbed up a little bit, mainly because Missouri has lost some guys to the draft. And Wake Forest got the good news recently that their quarterback, Hartman, is going to play in the game. And a lot of folks thought Sam Hartman would either A, be heading towards the draft, or B, transferring and would not play in the game, but he is going to play in the game. So it makes me think that maybe he's thinking about going to the draft. He wants to go up against an SEC defense on tape, right? Who do you have in that game?
Man.
It's a high over to 58.5.
I'll take Missouri. They've put together some good games this year. It's not a win, but they played a good game against Georgia. They've played some great. They've had some good games with their schedule. They've had some bad ones as well, but I think they can go out there and beat Wake Forest.
Give me a score.
Oof. What's the over/under? What's that at?
58.5.
58.5. It'll probably be a little bit on the higher side.
It's in Tampa too, so I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of 57 degrees is the I think we might have lost Bobby. He just went blank. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, a lot more football talk ahead, and keep it locked in here on The Key and Braves Country HD. We'll be back in a flash. We'll see if we can get Bobby reconnected.
Armchair. You're listening to the Armchair Quarterback Sports Radio, #1 sports station.
Good afternoon, and this is your Armchair Quarterbacks Sports Flash. College football action on Friday, 3 o'clock Eastern, Louisiana and Houston in the Independence Bowl. The Cougars, a 7-point favorite. 57 is the over-under. And at 6:30 Eastern, Wake Forest, Missouri, a battle of ACC versus SEC. The Demon Deacons, 1-point favorite, over-under sits at 58.5. That game is in Tampa, Florida. On Christmas Eve, it's the Hawaii Bowl. Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders versus the San Diego State Aztecs. MTSU is a 7-point underdog. Over-under is 49. The National Football League this weekend has a full slate on Christmas Eve. Saturday's action begins at 1 o'clock Eastern. Titans host the Texans. Tennessee is a 4-point favorite. Over-under is 36. Bills and Bears. Buffalo, 9-point favorite. 40.5 is the over. Saints and Browns. Cleveland, a 2.5-point favorite. 32 is the under. Seahawks and Chiefs. Kansas City, 10-point favorite. Over-under 49.5. A big one in the NFC. Giants and Vikings in Minnesota. Under the dome. Vikings -4, over-under 48. Bengals and Patriots, Lockhorns. Joe Burrow and company, 3-point favorite. The line is 41.5. Your Atlanta Falcons, a 7.5-point underdog in Baltimore. The over-under 37.5. Lions and Panthers. Detroit, -2.5, over-under 44. In the late games on Christmas Eve, 4:05 Eastern, Commanders, 7-point dogs to the Niners out in San Fran, over-under 38. The Eagles and Cowboys. Eagles are getting 4.5, over-under is 47. And Christmas Eve night, an old rivalry renewed. Feels like the 70s when the Pittsburgh Steelers host the Raiders. Steelers -2.5, over-under 39. In your Christmas Day slate, Packers and Dolphins at 1, Miami giving up 4. Broncos and Rams, that over-under is 36.5, kicking off at 4:30. And the nightcap, Bucks needing a win, giving up 6.5 at Arizona, over-under is 41. And that's your Armchair Quarterback Sports Flash. Stay tuned for Braves Country right here on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Newnan, Georgia, simulcasting on youtube.com at Braves Country.
It's the best in sports and entertainment, and get locked in and locked down with Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. with your host, me, Ryan O'Neal, each and every morning, right here with the best in sports and entertainment, all the way from professional sports to college sports to River Dragons hockey and everything in between, including some of the very best local and national guests. It's the Rhino Radio Penitentiary, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Fridays, right here on 99.1 FM WQEE.
Are you looking for a reliable dental practice that not only cares about your teeth, but is friendly to work with? How about one that offers great deals and new patient promotions? Well, your search is over. Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton, Georgia is committed to giving you the biggest and brightest smile. Right now, get a $99 new patient special, including x-rays and exam. Maybe you're looking for veneers. Most Valuable Smiles veneer special includes 1 free veneer with every 5 purchased. Or get that bright white smile you've always wanted by taking advantage of an exclusive $100 off Zoom whitening treatment when you book today. And don't forget that 2022 is almost over. That means most insurance policies will reset by the new year, and to avoid losing that extra money, you need to use it or lose it. Book an appointment today with Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton to lock in these exclusive deals. Call 706-623-0318 or visit mostvaluablesmiles.com.
But if the pain of the 60s seemed greater, then so did the love.
If you didn't love the game, it wasn't any use to play because there wasn't any money in it.
I think I played during the era of football as a game. Never thought of myself as a crass mercenary. I thought of myself as an athlete, and how much more fun could a young, oversized fellow out of college have?
From the decade's first champion to its last, the 60s presented pro football as a microcosm of a vibrant and changing society on its way to bigger and better things.
You mean to tell me we're going to drive from here to Texarkana, Texas, and back to here in 28 hours?
It's only 900 miles there, 900 miles back.
Well, for your information, that ain't never been done, not no rig.
That's because you and I ain't never done it in no rig. You got to stop thinking so negative, son.
Welcome back. College Bowl doubleheader today. And the Raging Cajuns are leading the Cougars 13-6. Is about little less than 2 minutes left in that ball game. Tonight you got Wake Forest and Missouri. Should be a pretty interesting game there. We're talking about that when we lost connection with Bobby. Evidently he got a phone call. He was going off of his phone, and I had to teach him some things about technology on how to prevent all that. But anyways, the game tonight, 6:30 Eastern. Love the fact that we've got a football game heading into the weekend, and then when you look at the slate going on tomorrow, there's some really good games in that early window. We'll get into here in 1 second, but I did want to hit up on something. Penn State lost a big commit. Conrad Hussey, the safety, he flipped to Florida State today, or I guess it was actually last night. That's a big deal. Some other news that's hitting around college football. Chase Brown, who leads Power 5 in rushing, he is declared for the NFL draft, so you can't figure he's going to play in their bowl game, which is coming up. Of course, if you missed it earlier, the Braves make a trade for Luis Diaz, who made the trade with the Orioles, but he has been a Marlin for the last few years, the first baseman for the Marlin. And Trevor Bauer didn't get a chance to get into this yet. Trevor Bauer has been reinstated by Major League Baseball. The Dodgers will have 2 weeks to decide whether or not to bring him back or release him. So that's an interesting. And the other thing that would be interesting in that whole situation is when Bauer was kicked out for all the weird stuff he had going on with the female, and the could only be described as, she described it as sexual battery. He described it as mutual consent, and an arbitrator essentially sided with him. But who's willing to bring that into the locker room? Because I think a lot of guys have distanced themselves. I thought it was pretty funny. Someone made the comment today on one of the morning shows I watched. They made a fake breaking news of the Cleveland Browns signing Trevor Bauer to a multi-year deal. But in all seriousness, I do know that he has continued to pitch, because I've seen him on social media where he's doing videos and he's talking to folks about baseball, and he's working out and staying in shape. At his apex, he was one of the better starting pitchers in baseball. It's one of the reasons why he got such a great deal by the Dodgers. But from my understanding, and we'll see if there's any truth to it, the Dodgers locker room, the players for the Dodgers do not want him back. Now, that was last year, and whether or not that's got anything to do with, remember, he was supposed to be suspended for one more season. An independent arbitrator essentially not only reduced it, but immediately reinstated him. So that's a big deal right now as we head towards the regular season. Of course, next week is the last week of 2022, and then you start flipping the calendar over. Once you get into that beginning part of January, baseball starts revving up, and it revs up a little earlier this year because you've got the World Baseball Classic. And that should be a lot of fun. World Baseball Classic. I believe the United States, their games are going to be played out in Phoenix, Arizona. But that gets underway about 6 to 8 weeks from now. And pitchers and catchers are reporting, 7 weeks from now? So we're in the last week of what I consider the non-baseball season. Yes, you have free agency going on right now, but most of your big guys are gone in free agency. You'll still have some trades, but most of the stuff that'll go on between now and we'll say when pitchers and catchers report, maybe a little before, we'll say between now and the Super Bowl, as far as baseball is concerned, it's going to be teams shoring up their bench and their bullpen. And there are some starting pitchers that are out there, but the big ticket guys are pretty much all gone. So Major League Baseball, whoever ends up with Trevor Bauer, that is going to be a sticky wicket, because if you bring him in, you're going to tick off some of your fan base. There will be fans that won't care. They'll say, bring him, come on, let's go. He's a talented pitcher. And there's going to be other people that say what he did kind of skeeved me out. I don't really want him on the roster. And that'll be the multi-million-dollar question. Whoever signs him, it's going to be, he's not going to play for peanuts. I can guarantee you that. His salary before this controversy was about $40 million a year. Now, he's not going to get that on the open market. He's going to sign a 1-year deal with somebody, but I guarantee you he's going to get somewhere around at least the perceived base of a starting pitcher, which would be around the 20 million range, I would think. Maybe he signs a 1-year 15, but he's not going to go out there and play for peanuts. Too many teams are going to need a pitcher that he'll hold out long enough to get paid his worth. But he'll probably sign a 1-year deal wherever he goes so that he can reset his market value. If he keeps his nose clean, everything will be okay. So essentially what we have going on now is building up to that. But back to the football, by the way, those that bowl game, the Independence Bowl, it's winding down towards the end of the first half. Louisiana still, they lead by 7, but they are threatening. And there was a play a little while ago that almost flipped the table because it was picked off, but the defender was well out of bounds. And it was right around midfield. So we'll see how that goes. I took the under in that game, so I'm wanting a lower score, but they're creeping up. And about 9 seconds left, but they're right there on the door of knocking it in. So I think Louisiana's looking pretty good with the chance to actually score a touchdown here before they go into the half. So it'll almost be at the halfway point of where the over-under is. Games that we're looking forward to this weekend, we haven't really gotten much into. That Baltimore-Atlanta game, look, I get that Atlanta, if you're a Falcons fan, you're probably sitting there thinking the season's essentially over. Crazier things have happened, and if Atlanta can find a way to get a win or two, the rest of the division is not impressing anybody. Tampa's going on the road to play Arizona, and I get that Arizona's banged up and they're not a very good team, but it is a road game in the National Football League, so it's never a given. I think that line is extremely large. Arizona's getting 9 points right now, and I just do not think that they are a big enough draw for that. 9 points. They're drawing 9 points. They're a 9-point favor over anybody in the NFL. I don't see that in Tampa. I think Tampa will win, but 9 points, man, that is a big, big ask. And then a couple other games of note, New England, Cincinnati. I haven't really talked about that, but the Patriots are getting 3 points at home, and this is one of these. These are one of these. This game stinks, right? It reeks. Why is New England only a 3-point underdog, even though they're at home? Cincinnati's been dominant. New England's been terrible. This game stinks. I'm afraid to touch it because I feel like the books know something we don't know. We want to go in there and lay the money on Cincy, but is this basically a letdown situation? Does it have anything to do with it? It's a shorter week. Does it have anything to do with the fact that it's Christmas Eve? On paper, it doesn't seem like the two of those teams would be within 10 points of each other. So there's that, and the New Orleans-Cleveland game. 32 points is the under. We talked about the weather conditions. The wind is supposed to be brutal. I don't understand why it's this high. And I know that sounds crazy because in the NFL, 32 points is a very low over-under. It's very low over-under. But that wind is going to be whipping off the lake. And I still think it's too high. It makes you a little nervous when you take an under that low, because one goofy play here or there can flip the field. Next thing you know, I mean, we're talking about a game that if the final score is 21-14, you hit the over. That seems so gettable. But then you break it down and you look at New Orleans offense with Andy Dalton and the wind. They haven't been able to get much going on the ground game with the Saints. Olave's not playing. Of course, Jarvis Landry's not playing. So you have that going on for the New Orleans side, and then you go to the Cleveland side, and the Saints can stop the run, and that's the one thing Cleveland's been able to do. So this game feels like a game that is going to come down to similar to last week with Baltimore and Cleveland, but maybe even slower pace game where this game feels like the first 1 to 10 is going to win. I could easily see a 10-6 final. I'd feel a little better teasing it and getting that over under up over 38. And then maybe, but I'll tell you what, I feel better about teasing it up than teasing it down, because even if you get it down to 26 points, I don't know if that's enough. I really don't know if that's enough. And yes, I do agree that the fact that Brady plays for the Bucs is the reason why that line is so high. Because if you take that name off the back of his jersey and you put any other veteran quarterback with that offensive line, they've still got a talented receiving corps, but that offensive line, the way that defense has played, they're not a 9-point favorite. They're really not. The Titans and Houston over-unders 35.5. I think that's extremely high. Their first matchup in prime conditions in Houston with similar injuries. The final score was 17-10, so we're talking about 27 points, and that was a late garbage touchdown. 35.5 seems extremely high for. They're calling for single digits. They're calling for wind, possibly even some snow. San Francisco's laying 7.5 against Washington, and I'm still willing to take San Fran this weekend. I just think that team is playing extremely good football. It's hard to wrap your head around it, because when you see it, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, Brock Purdy's behind center. And they've lost Lance and they've lost Jimmy G, and they can't keep, but this team is not built around an elite quarterback. This team is built around an elite running game. And that's what's going to be the difference in this game, is I think they will grind it out. They will pound it out. They will win that game by about 10. And remember something too, Washington's coming off of a Sunday night game. And that does factor, especially when you're talking about a short week. The bumps and bruises. And Heineke, I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. I think he's a serviceable quarterback in the NFL, but he made some big mistakes against the Giants, and the Giants beat that team. They were the best team on the field, and all we've heard all week is excuses from the Commanders and the players and their fans about how they didn't get the calls. But if you look at it, you look at the turnovers, you look at the way they were beat on the line of scrimmage, Washington was not the better team, and they might have got a bum call from the referees. But you're trying to tell me if we broke down that entire tape, the Giants didn't get one bad bum call? And even if they score, that does not guarantee that they're going to get the 2-point conversion to tie it, nor is it going to guarantee that they're going to do anything in overtime, because it's kind of funny that game ended at 20-12, because I was thinking about it afterwards. The game ends at 20-12. Had they scored a touchdown and gotten the 2-point conversion, it would have been 20-20 going into overtime, which is the exact same score we got in the first matchup where it ended in overtime. But anyway, you scrape it up, I think Washington and I think New York are probably one and dones if they get in the playoffs. I don't see how either one of those teams travel well and win a game on the road with the top 4 seeds in the National Football League, or excuse me, in the NFC. And we're talking about, or we can go top 5 seeds. Philly and Dallas, Minnesota, Tampa Bay's the tricky one, and San Francisco. Of all those 5 teams that are most likely to lose in the first round, it's probably Tampa, but New York and Washington, they're not going to be a higher seed than Dallas. So they're going to have to go on the road and beat either Minnesota or San Francisco. And I just don't see how that's going to happen. The Giants could pull off the upset this weekend, but in a playoff atmosphere, I feel like Minnesota's got too much firepower. The 49ers are too good top to bottom. So what you're really playing for, if you're a Giants fan, if you're a Commanders fan, et cetera, I get it. Everyone's got a fair shake. But what you're really playing for is a first-round exit. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to wrap this hour up, take you to the top of the hour, and head you towards Christmas, where Farrell Coast to Coast is going to take it over at the top of the hour. And then, of course, you've got River Dragon Hockey tonight, 6:30. It's the Air Force Heating and Air pregame show. The puck will drop at 7:05. And then we go right back at it starting on Monday. You'll get Rhino Radio Penitentiary 7 to 10. Rod Peterson Show noon to 2. And Sports Beat from 2 to 3. We'll be back in a flash here on Braves Country, weekdays 3 to 5. Keep it locked in here as we're taking you towards Christmas Eve and Christmas football. What a great weekend we have in store for us.
Are you listening to yourself? I always listen to myself. It's one of the great joys of my life.
Armchair Quarterbacks Radio covers the whole SEC the whole season long.
Dobbs heaves it. They're bunched up in the end zone. It's tipped up. It's caught. It is caught. Jawan Jennings.
Just the start of things. First quarter at the Geetha Bowl in Jacksonville. And Walker sneaks to the right. Gets outside. The 35. Look out. He's past midfield and he's got a blocker. Cuts to the inside. Herschel Walker. There he goes again.
Straight up the middle. Touchdown. Delayed reaction, but Tebow got in. Oh, jump pass. How about that? Oh, my gosh. That looks like 1955. Holy cow. Are you kidding me?
Armchair.
SEC! SEC!
What does it take to break you? What does it take to break your focus?
because you get frustrated about what happened on the last play? What does it take to make you give in because it's hot outside, or you're tired, or you don't feel like running to the ball or giving effort or finishing the play like you should because of how you feel, whether you're a little bit hurt? What does it take to break you? It's going to be difficult because you're getting yourself ready to play an entire season at a high level. So everybody here has got to have a lot of mental toughness to be able to sustain what we do at a high level.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of Braves country, with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com at Braves Country. Welcome back. As we are heading towards the top of the hour, Farrell to Coast is up next. Sports Map Radio, taking you all the way through the evening. And Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, he's got a lot of great Christmas stuff set coming your way. Tomorrow, Christmas Eve, and it's funny, I've gotten some comments, some inboxes, people just realizing that tomorrow is NFL Sunday, essentially. Because Christmas Eve, it's a full slate of NFL football, and then on Christmas, if you haven't looked at this, it's 3 games. 1 o'clock is Green Bay and Miami. The 4:30 kickoff is Denver and the Rams. Oh, is that brutal? I know when they first made it, they probably thought this is going to be great. We're going to get the defending Super Bowl champions. We're going to get Russell Wilson. Look out. Let's go. This should be a battle. Oh, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a low-scoring battle. That game is in a dome, and I still think that the over-under is too high. It's sitting around 36-37 right now. And then Christmas night, once again, Arizona and Tampa Bay. I'm sure when they put this up, what were they thinking? They were thinking, hey, Arizona went to the playoffs last year. Kyler Murray versus Tom Brady. This will be a good old-fashioned shootout. Instead, we are going to get a dud. The only reason to watch that game Christmas night is if you're a fan of the Buccaneers, because it's not even realistically worth watching if you're a fan of the Cardinals, because they're not going to the playoffs, or you have some kind of fantasy football involved in it. One of your receivers, one of your running backs. I would hope to think that you do not have either quarterback starting in that game. And then we get kind of a dud on Christmas night, the night after. The Colts are at home against the Chargers, but it is a big game for the Chargers. The Chargers are in the thick of the AFC wildcard race. But after what the Colts just did, what will be interesting to me about that game is what is the reaction of the Colts players going into that game after blowing a 33-0 lead the last time they were on the field. They'll have a full 9 days to kind of soak all that in. And will they give up any kind of a fight, or are they just going to be absolutely done? And then, of course, once again, Matt Ryan's not going to play. The Colts offense has turned into a disaster. You don't have Matt Ryan. And why would you? At this point, he's just playing absolutely terribly. And you don't have Jonathan Taylor. He's out. That's a bad game. And the problem with those Monday night games is they can't flex them because it's on a totally different day, and it's too much of a headache. So there are gambles at the beginning of the season, and they thought when they put that together that the Colts would be a much better football team than what they are. It seems like you always get this at the end of the year, though. It seems like it's very rare that the Monday night football game is a good one. it seems like the people that put these together just do an absolutely terrible job of predicting what is and what isn't going to be a good game. Like, I feel like you play it safe. If I'm sitting back way back in, I guess it would have been March that they're putting these together, and I'm trying to figure out who to put on Monday Night Football this week, and I'm going off of what just happened and what I think will happen this week, or this year, excuse me. Why would you not have gone with Bengals and Patriots? Because it didn't get taken by any. It's really strange. That game was not the primetime game. It didn't get flexed. That game is not one of the Christmas Day games. It seems like a perfect opportunity. And it's not Monday Night Football. So unless you have the ticket, the NFL ticket, or unless you just happen to be in the market that's carrying that game, you're not going to get a chance to see what I think is a pretty good. Even Seattle, Kansas City makes a lot of sense way back in March. Now, you might have been a little gun shy with Seattle because of losing Russell Wilson. But you're trying to tell me that the Colts with Matt Ryan was an intriguing game way back in March? I remember when they signed him, of course, Joey being a big Colts fan, forever the optimist, and you can't kill the optimist fan, but I remember telling him at the time, I was like, it's a terrible sign. He's lost it. There's a reason why Atlanta's letting him go. And this guy somehow has been the quarterback of two of the biggest collapses in the history of the National Football League. We all remember the 28-3 Super Bowl, and I don't like bringing it up because it's a sore subject in Braves country. But Matt Ryan was that quarterback, and then 33-0 with 8.5 minutes left in the third quarter. And I get it that wasn't a playoff game, but that was a disaster. You don't lose that game. You find a way to get enough first downs to where you don't lose that game. It was on rerun the other day on I think it was NFL Network, and I glanced at it just as the Vikings were about to go in for that first touchdown, and I happened to look at the clock, and there was 8.5 minutes left. So 23 minutes and some change, and it's 33-0, and you can't hold on to that. 23 minutes and you can't hold on to that. It's unbelievable. Tomorrow's action, I think there's a lot of really good games. But by the way, that a bowl game did go to half at 16-6. Louisiana leading Houston in the Independence Bowl. I remember growing up, the Independence Bowl was actually a pretty decent bowl game. I can specifically remember Bear Bryant and the Alabama Crimson Tide playing in that game. And then there was the other one. I'm drawing a blank, but there was always a couple of bowl games that you had decent matchups, even though they weren't looked upon as top tier because they weren't on New Year's Day. Because believe it or not, y'all, years and years ago, there were not 43 bowl games like we have now. It used to be a badge of honor to go to a bowl game. Now they're putting a 5-7 Rice team into the bowl games just to fill the slots. Once again, and I know I've beaten this dead horse, but they've got to move the bowl games to the beginning of the season. With the playoffs coming, if you think they aren't paid attention to now, let there be 12-team playoffs. You know it's going to 16, and it would shock me if it didn't go to like 24 at some point. But you start getting all these playoff games sprinkled throughout December. Who is going to take time off to watch the Independence Bowl? But you'll watch the Independence Bowl if it sits in August. And the Independence Bowl just happens to be a matchup of, we'll say, Oklahoma versus Texas A&M in August. And the bowls themselves will get a better viewership. They'll get more fans in the stands. They are showing the fans in the stands right now. I'd be willing to bet that's about 30, maybe 40% full, if that. And you can't blame the fans, because even if you're a fan of the Raging Cajuns or the Houston Cougars, are you able to travel the day before Christmas Eve to a random city and watch a game on Friday afternoon? That's a big ask. That is a really big ask. But in the middle of the summer, or the end of the summer, August, end of August, early September, Labor Day weekend, let's go. Let's do it. Let's make a trip out of this. And you could have more of these bowls up north in some of your bigger areas that are actually fun to go visit when it's not 2 degrees outside. You could have that going on if these games were played in August. And I know a lot of people probably think I'm nuts, but I will continue to bang that gavel until it finally comes around. I talked about it for years that 14 playoff was too small. They finally got that straight. I still think it's a little too big. I still would prefer 7. But if you're going to go to 12, then we know you're heading towards 16 and beyond, which means the bowl games are not going to give, no one's going to give anything. No one is going to care about these bowl games in 2024 if it's going head to head or if it's even around one of these playoff games. We got to start heading out of here. But before we do, I do want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a safe Christmas. Remember, there's a lot of idiots out there on the road. Please don't be one of them. Please be safe. And don't be scared to dial up your Uber or your the other one's slipping my mind, but any kind of cab company. And a lot of them, especially during the new year, they in this time of year, there are a lot of folks in a lot of your cities that are actually have it set up for free rides. So be safe over the weekend. It's one of the more dangerous weekends. Everyone thinks of New Year's Eve, and rightfully so, but Christmas Eve, I worked in the restaurant and bar business for a long time. It is drunk man's paradise. Be careful out there on the road. Try not to be on it more than you have to be. All right, have a great weekend. Farrell Coast to Coast is on the way. We'll see you Monday. And for all the guys and gals behind Armchair Quarterback Radio, Braves Country will be back 3 to 5 on Monday. We'll be able to react to all the NFL and, of course, one heck of a bowl weekend. Have a great one. Merry Christmas, y'all.
Goodbye, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart, goodbye. Goodbye.
Guys and gals, it's time to go. We'll see you on the next show.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Thanks for listening to Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks on 99.1 FM WQEE The Key in Newnan, Georgia, and simulcasting on youtube.com/@Braves Country. Braves Country comes your way weekdays 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Please follow, like, and subscribe today. Armchair Quarterback Radio, your first choice for Southern sports.
Something of the 5th of September. Something of the 5th of September. She said a lot that I can't remember. Something of the 5th. Can I get another cigarette, please? Can I get another cigarette, please? Yeah, I know I live to regret it. Just give me another cigarette, please.
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia.
Are you looking for a reliable dental practice that not only cares about your teeth, but is friendly to work with? How about one that offers great deals and new patient promotions? Well, your search is over. Most Valuable Smiles in downtown Eatonton, Georgia is committed to giving you the biggest and brightest smile. Right now, get a $99 new patient special